and welcome back to Tasty Tuesday. This week we're going to be making some apple chips. So they're like spiced apple chips. What I really like about these guys is that when I'm craving that crunch, but I'm really trying to watch what I'm eating, this kind of satisfies that, as well as it could be kid friendly, all family friendly, so that's always a bonus. So what I've already done is I've preheated the stove to 200. So basically when making chips, you're basically cooking it and dehydrating it. You could also probably do this with a dehydrator. I don't have one, but I'm pretty sure that you can make that real quick in there. So what I've already done is I have a tablespoon and a half of cinnamon, and you can use any cinnamon. I'm just very I love Penzi spices. They're really good quality and I love the brand. So I've got 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. I've got 1/4 teaspoon of cardamon. I know this is not something that normally everybody has in their pantry, but you should because it's delicious and amazing. And then 1/4 teaspoon ground nutmeg. And then kind of salt to taste. I use the Himalayan pink salt because I really enjoy it. So you can use whatever salt that you prefer. Mix it all up. And I always like to get this ready before I start slicing my apples so I can make it faster. So I'm going to move these guys all out of the way. So a few months back I did a top 5 different types of kitchen gadgets that you should have in your home. So I'm bringing out one of them. This is going to be the mandolin. What I really like about this one is it has different features. It has a safety lock, and then it has different blades that allow you to store them underneath it. So for this, what I like to do is it really depends on the apple and the thickness. You don't want it too thick, but you don't want it too thin because they're going to dry up and crisp and burn. So you can pick any apple that you want. These are Gala apples. I lied, they're Pink Lady apples. It really doesn't matter which ones you've done. I've done Gala, Pink Lady, I've done Honeycrisp. I've kind of done just a selection. You can do whatever you want. If you want your green apples or your red ones, like my dad's a huge fan of red apples, you can do that as well. So you want to make sure that you take out the stem. This one actually, there's a benefit of getting this one. It didn't have a stem in it. And what you're going to do is you're going to slice. What I always do is I test it a little bit. Right now I have it at 3/16 of an inch. And I'm going to test it and see. So always make sure safety first. Don't stick your fingers down below here. I always make sure that mine are on top. And I'm just going to start shredding it. But I'm going to check first.
Brittany, we do have a question.
Oh, yes.
Are Granny Smith apples too tart?
I guess it would depend on preference, but remember you're also adding a little salt. You're adding a little bit of the cinnamon and the spices, so that could tame it down. But once again, I haven't used Granny Smith, so I can't personally speak to whether it would end up too tart. But it kind of takes away I would say it takes away the taste and gives that real good spice. So I don't see why you wouldn't be able to use it, especially if you had some on hand. That'd be my advice. So this looks like a good size for me that I'm gonna do, and I keep this big bad boy. I'm not, I don't discriminate against the heels of the apples as some people do. So yeah, I'm just going to. So once again, they're not ever perfect, and sometimes they'll break like this. But that's about the size. You don't want it any thicker than that, and smaller than that you can get. But like I said, you'll have to make sure that they're just all even so they distribute the cooking properly. And you want to just keep going. I actually cut through the core part of it. So you just keep going. And I like to kind of pull them out and put them on down. So this is the fun and exciting part of this. So once you get to the core part, they're just going to the seeds will kind of come out. and you can kind of just separate them. They're not extremely hazardous for humans to eat, but make sure that you don't feed them to animals because they do have arsenic in them, especially birds.
Why is that?
Do they have arsenic in them? That's a good question. I think it's just a natural component of the seed. So there's two ways to actually do this. It kind of depends on you. So you can sprinkle the seasoning over this and then flip it and sprinkle it again. Or you can put it in a bowl, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try to see how many fit on here before I put it in the bowl. I just like to be super organized like that. So this is a really great treat. You want to, once you do make them, you will want to store them in an airtight container, and they last for, I would say, 5 or 6 days, depending on how good your airtight container is.
What type do you use?
I have the OXO containers, or I have, I don't have any out. Actually, I do.
And you can get them at Container Store, right?
Yeah, or you can get them at Walmart. So this is another one that I'll use. Sorry, I've got some coconut sugar in it for my coffee. But this is another container that type of container that I would use for them to make sure that they don't, especially in Texas, because we've got a lot of humidity here. So once you dry stuff out, if it's exposed to moisture, then it's gonna kind of get mushy again. So kind of like the chickpeas that we talked about, this guy doesn't have a lot of seeds. But I don't really, it doesn't bother me to keep these in because when it dries, it kind of just shrivels up. But if you have a problem, you can cut those out. It's not.
Or if your kids.
Yeah, if the texture really bothers your kids, it is all good. You kind of figure out what works for you. So usually one apple kind of fits on a pan. As you can tell, I'm kind of trying to be a little bit more careful once I get down to the bottom of it, because I have sliced my hand and I don't want to do it again. So when it comes to like that kind of stuff, once again, you can cut it out. I don't really care. It's good roughage, right?
Give you some fiber.
And see, if you try to do it like that, I end up breaking them. So may the odds be ever in your favor on that one. Alright, so I see that I don't have to get another pan out, which is perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer all these big bad boys into this bowl. And then I'm going to, this is the easiest way that I have found. And I just get in there and toss it around. So I make sure that every piece has a good coating on it.
And what does this contain again?
So it contains 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of cardamon, and then salt to kind of taste. I think I may have done 1/4 teaspoon as well. You can do this by hand as well. So when cooking these, you're going to flip them, and if you ever see that they need more stuff, you can kind of put, see, it's like they get one side and then the other side they don't. We'll get that one. So that one's like a kind of perfect. It has a little bit of equal spices around it. So then you're just going to lay them out on your sheet. Oh, that's a nice one. And it's like some of them got really nice and some didn't. It's all good.
They look like little sand dollars.
I know, they kind of do. I really like these for like mid-afternoon snacks. Personally, for me, it kind of gives me a little, it makes me feel like I'm being really bad. I do like the crunch of chips, and sometimes when you're eating really healthy, you don't get that in certain foods. So this is a healthy alternative.
What do you have with it?
So you could have, you could have a little bit of yogurt. You could have, I don't know if peanut butter would necessarily go with it, but you could really, I would pair it with some sort of protein, cottage cheese if you like cottage cheese. Especially like if you did like a pre-workout snack, you could have them. The greatest thing about cinnamon is it's good for digestion, blood sugar levels, and it just tastes good. I'm like a cinnamonaholic, sorry. Everything. Next week there will not be any cinnamon in the recipes, I promise. So I'm going to flip that over. So basically what you'll do is you'll cook them for about 30 minutes on one side. And then you'll flip them. And then you'll cook them for 30 to 40 minutes on the other side. And once again, you'll set it to around 200 degrees. If your oven doesn't have 200 degrees, if it's, you just, whatever you do, just set it to the lowest temperature and kind of just check on them a little bit. So this is kind of the same, I've done like dehydrated, like fruit leathers, kind of the same way, where you cook them at a very low temperature for a very long time. So yeah, so what we're going to do is just put it on in. I put it in the middle rack as I do everything else. And like I said, 30 minutes on one side, 30 minutes to 40 minutes on the other side. And trust me, you'll start to really feel them starting to get crisp. And then once they set out and kind of cool, they'll crisp up. But once again, you got to put them in an airtight container after that, so you make sure that they don't rehydrate, basically, with all the moisture in the air. So yeah, so right now we're going to cook them, and then stay tuned because we will put up photos of what they look like later. Also, if you have any suggestions for Tasty Tuesday, we'd love to hear. It could be a new recipe that you really like that you want to see done, or it could be one of your favorite types of foods that you'd like to see in a healthier way. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.